And there he is. How you doing, Victor?
Hey, hey, how are you?
Doing well, doing well. So, I guess this is part two of our Inspired series this month for the month of September, being that it's suicide prevention work. So super excited that we're doing this. Super excited that we are drawing more attention and continuing this conversation because it's a super important topic. Um,
Absolutely.
so it's always good to see you.
Good to
Um,
see you as well. Thank you for having me.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. So I see people are beginning to file in, but we'll hop right into it as we always do by first beginning with the check-in. So, just talk to us about how you've been over the past week since we last talked. How are you really doing?
I'm really doing well. Like I think last time we talked, I came off a day where we were doing some training in a school and I was anxious. And whenever we share our stories, like giving a piece of yourself, but you know it's okay because you're helping to save someone. But the past week, I've had the joy of coming out to Vegas to see my son spend time with my wife, see Solomon and a bunch of other unbelievable nonprofits get together yesterday, which I know we're going to talk about this later, to share the message of suicide prevention and hope. That was fantastic. And man, you just can't get over the fact of that Monday Night Football game, that just tremendous win the Raiders were able to pull out. And it was just fun to see Solomon on the field playing and competing at a high level and having fun.
Which, I mean, I'm sure as a father is amazing to see, your son, chase his dreams and reach the highest level of professional football and be an impact player. But I
Yeah.
mean, let's talk about that for a second now. That was, you know, as a Dolphins fan, I know Solomon, I think he was with the 49ers last year, but the Raiders had
Yes.
a crazy Monday night game. And then here
Yes.
we are again. The Raiders are always in these crazy games, but man, like the highs and lows of that game, like what was that like
Oh,
as a father?
that was just amazing. First of all, the energy of the stadium, and then you had all these celebrities in there like Ice Cube and Too Short and all these other, they had George Lopez. Solomon said he was walking by the locker room, but then also just the play. I mean, it was the first week of playing, and you wouldn't even think that was the first game of the year. There were very few penalties. They were very focused, and then just to see the energy out there amongst Solomon's D-line crew. They were playing well together. And the other piece I really enjoyed was just how the city of Vegas is out there doing some things from a social justice standpoint. They were recognizing some key pieces there, as well as mental health. They had a company here who recognized some key people on the mental health field. So they seem to really got the message of the importance of a whole person and just not athletics. So that was good to see all of that.
Definitely, definitely is, and it's also encouraging to see that the city of Vegas is doing that, and I know Solon himself has gotten involved a little bit there, and we'll something that we're going to talk about a little bit later on today.
Yes.
Before we dive into all that, though, um, I just want to again continue to speak about some of the things that you are involved in with the defensive line. So one of those things being, you guys recently had a discussion on Insta Live. I know we kicked things off for you
Yes.
live, but since then you really dove into it, and you're just all over the place with it now. But you recently had a discussion with the Providence Health System. So for those
Yes.
that missed it and those that weren't able to join in that conversation, can you just tell us about your discussion?
Yeah, it was a really great discussion between Dr. Henderson, my wife Martha, who I've been married to for 36 years, and myself. And we just had a great discussion on Suicide Prevention Day, and just talked about the importance of suicide prevention, the importance of hope, of connectivity, of sort of leveraging each other to make sure we're asking each other, are we okay? And we talked about how the defensive line is the bridge between, great existing mental health evidence-based training, but also getting it into the hands of people, in particular leaders of young people and young people of color, so folks understand the message that's out there of hope, of opportunity, of just how we can make sure we take care of each other, whether it's self-care, whether it's going to training, whether it's support systems. So we were blessed to have Providence and Dr. Henderson talk about that, some of the great programs they have. We talked about, how they've got some upcoming events here in September of Suicide Prevention Month, which I'll be glad to list whenever you're ready. But then just how we're working together between the defensive line and Providence on making sure our youth are equipped with the right resources and information. So that was really well put together discussion that they led.
Awesome. Yeah. And, I also want to give you an opportunity to touch on whether it's giving us that list that you just mentioned or whatever you may have it. But, I want to give you an opportunity for you to share or repeat an answer to a question they might have asked you, but kind of just give you the floor to go a little bit more in depth about that conversation. Anything that, you think is important for you to share on this platform as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. Yeah, so Providence is a nonprofit Catholic healthcare system that's based out of Washington, and they've been on the forefront of mental health for the longest time. And we've got this connection through Providence, through Solomon's sports agency EAG, and they've done a lot of work with athletes, whether it's Tyrone Matthew, Brandon Marshall, and we talked last week about the importance of mental health and how athletes use their platform. So Providence has jumped all over that, whether it's football or basketball. They're associated with a lot of NBA as well as NFL players. But they've got a couple of events coming up on September 17th. Dr. Apron Wagre, who is the MD and manages their digital innovation group, is talking to about risk suicide, people at risk and at suicide. And there are two events happening that day. And then we've also worked with Work to Be Well. It's a team-based driven movement. And we've done a lot of programs with them. And they've got some excellent programs that they've listed on their Work to Be Well website that we really hope that people go there or go to the defensive line to see where they have some significant events. We're working with them throughout the year on trying to put together programming on a monthly basis to help youth understand there are programs out there, there's information, there are tools and mentors available to help you with your mental health and suicide prevention. So on September 17th, please make sure you look at Providence websites. So for those two events, I believe it's 11:30 a.m., but I don't know if it's 11:30 a.m. Pacific time or Central, so I apologize, but check that website, and they're just doing phenomenal work in helping the youth understand the importance of mental wellness and suicide prevention and hope.
Yeah, so you guys heard it. We definitely encourage you guys to check them out to get more information on that. And you've done a great job of kind of giving us a background, explaining to us who Providence Health is and kind of what they're doing, what their mission is. But I'm curious as to know, where did this relationship start? Because it's always amazing, especially in this industry that we work in, when two people with similar missions can come together. But I'm just curious, like, where did this start? When did you guys kind of link up and start working together?
Yeah, we started linking up actually late last year while Solomon's was rehabbing. We talked about one key element, and that is this whole pandemic that we talked about last week that it relates to African American youth suicide and how we need to get the message out there that we need to take care of each other. So they've been working on this for a while. They asked us to come in and join and talk about the entire, what we call BIPOC, the Biracial Indigenous People of Color Initiative and African American Initiative, how it's like the leading cause of death amongst African Americans, the second leading cause of death amongst African Americans. Here in Vegas, it's the leading cause of death amongst African American youth. And so that's one reason why we joined up with them, as well as a couple other key Vegas nonprofits like the City of Vegas and Batteries Included, Born This Way Foundation, which is Lady Gaga's organization, as well as Hope Means Nevada, which has been phenomenal in the support of helping the defensive line, Providence, and us get this message out. So it started late last year. We continue to put together programs on a monthly and quarterly basis because we want to get the message out to help people, young people of color, but also parents within the African American community to understand that this is something you need to be watching out for your children as well as for your children's friends, because it's a silent killer. And unless we get this message out there, we're not going to get the help. And then once you do get the help, you got to understand you just can't pray it away. You got to have self-care. You got to work therapy. You got to go to training. You got to go to support groups. We got to work together with all these key nonprofits like the Defensive Line, Hope Means Nevada, Providence, Work to Be Well, to understand what we can do together. Take all this evidence-based information, as well as key organizations like American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. There are all these resources out there. Let's use them to help stop this pandemic, because as you know, every 40 seconds globally, every 11 minutes within the US, somebody is dying by suicide, and we need to stop this.
Yeah, and I mean, it's exactly right, and that's why I think it's so important for us to highlight your relationship, and that's why I think the relationship you guys are building is so important because you guys together are tackling a lot of things that you just mentioned because it's necessary work and this is work that's saving lives. So
Amen.
definitely amazing for you guys to see that you are linking up together and doing that. But
Thank you.
I know we kind of started the conversation diving into football, and I know it took me back and Jared took me back as well. And we mentioned Solomon recently signed with the Las Vegas Raiders, excuse me. And as great of an impact as he's making on the field, he's making an immediate impact in the community as well. And he recently visited some local students, and if I'm not mistaken, you were present virtually, or so you were a little bit aware of what's going on. And actually, there was an article that was posted not so long ago that our founder at Flawless, Janine, shared with me. And there's just some quotes in here that I think are really impactful from Solomon. I mean, one thing he said was, while I was growing up, when I was a kid, when I was going through
Mm,
this, I had all these feelings. I didn't know how to talk about them, which is
yeah.
such an important thing for our youth, is learning how to feel your feelings. And I love
Hmm.
that you acknowledge that. He really got vulnerable. He was like, I was made fun of a little bit. I was called names. And we think here's this big superstar NFL player. And he's like, here he is letting us know, like, hey, he goes through a lot of the same things that kids all across the country,
Yes.
all across the world are going through. And it's a great article. I encourage everyone to check it out. This is on Fox 5 Vegas. I'm kind of looking
Yes.
over really quick and just kind
Yes.
of pulling some of the things. And so one thing that he said that you kind of alluded to too was, people, the crazy statistics of people attempting
Yes.
suicide and going through this. And again, pulling from the quote from the article where it says, Nevada, we rank second when it comes to our prevalence rate for our youth to have mental health issues. When one youth takes their life,
Yes.
another 100 to 200 youths
Yes.
attempt to take their life.
Oh my
So
goodness.
as mind blowing as the statement that you just said is, we also got to think about the hundreds of other kids who are already thinking about it or already attempting
Hmm.
and whatnot. So I don't know if you just want to say some words on that and touch on that and kind of how it just goes to show how important is the work that you're doing right now.
Absolutely. Well, a couple things. Martha and I were able to attend the event live, which we really appreciated. We were going to just stream, but we thought, why not stay an extra day or two just to attend this? Because, and I'm so glad we did. There were about 100 to 200 youth there of all different races and colors, and I was just amazed at their attention and focus with Dr. Jacobs, who was here moderating with Solomon. And as I mentioned before, it was led by the Raiders, the city of Nevada, and batteries included, Hope Means Nevada, and Born This Way Foundation, and they did a phenomenal job with the setup as well as the pre-publicity. There were media there, and this was very helpful to get the message out. One of the things that Solomon did at the beginning of the presentation is he asked kids, how many of you have heard and talked about mental health? And this was an unusual crowd. There were probably about half of the kids who raised their hand, said, we've heard of mental health. I think that's a great sort of testimony to what the work that we're doing here at the defensive line. Flawless, Providence, and others are starting to get that message out, and young kids are starting to talk about it. But the fact that he then opened up and shared how he was vulnerable as a young kid at that age, middle school and high school, how he was made fun of because he was a little pudgy. He ate too many of the Frito-Lay chips that I brought back home when I worked at Frito-Lay. But he also talked about some of the racism him and his sister went through, and how that was always it was almost like a daily event. That's something he was reminded of his skin color, and how also when he was preparing for athletics, even though he was a really excellent star in high school, how he even had anxiety attacks, and how he couldn't navigate through the actions, and how he wasn't given the right language and the right tools to work it. And so we were impressed with his vulnerability of opening up. But more importantly, we were really impressed with some of the kids who opened up. There was a young lady there who opened up and said that she had considered taking her life and wanted to know what she needed to do to help herself, but also her parents. So there was a great discussion on the tools and resources available, like AFSP, Providence, the defensive line, Born This Way, etc. Hope Means Nevada. Those tools that are available help her navigate through that. And then the other kids were just taking notes. And then The kids were all over it, and there was some really good media discussion afterwards. So it was a unbelievable event. And as excited as we were about the win on Monday, I think Tuesday's event was much better because I think between Dr. Jacobs and Solomon storytelling, the evidence-based information research they shared, I believe they saved some lives there. And just to see the leadership of Vegas there, the mayor was there. We had people from the Raiders as well as all the foundations I mentioned. It was just, it was a godsend.
Yeah, and I think we just said there. You said as amazing as that game was, and that's an early candidate for game of the year right there.
Yeah.
That it might not get any better than that. And as amazing as that Monday Night Football game was, it was Tuesday's event that still had, arguably a larger impact. And earlier I said how proud you must be to be a father, to see your son reach and accomplish his dreams, but at the same time, it probably gives you equal or more, joy to see the impact that he's having with the youth and how he is changing lives. Like you said, to have a woman come out and share, hey,
Yeah.
I'm in that situation. Like, these are the children, these are the lives that you and your son
Yes.
and Martha are all coming together to change. So, I think it's amazing to see that as this is not just, just you doing this. It's not just Solomon doing this. It's not just Martha doing this. It's you guys, the family, coming together and making an impact. So,
Absolutely.
as amazing that is, I want to ask, was this always the case? Was this a situation where you guys could always have discussions about this? And that's the first question I'm asking. The second question I'm asking you is, how do you encourage, like the young woman said, how do I speak about my parents? How do you encourage, families to discuss mental health more?
That's a great question. And one of the things to your first question, initially it was a little bit of a lag with us in trying to talk about our story. And like others who have been impacted by suicide, there was some shame and some guilt associated with Ella's passing. And we had to navigate our way through that. And we had some tremendous resources, like we talked about last week. The Niners provided Solomon and ourselves some tremendous therapy resources. We did a lot of research. We also listened to a lot of stories that other folks have gone through. We listened to the Alinsky Hope story, the Ivan Mazel story. And, then when Solomon penned his player tribute article with Molly Knight, it helped open up and realize that it's okay for us to open up and be vulnerable. So we were slow at first. And then we had some tremendous support from AFSP between Dr. Christian Motier and Stephanie Rogers, Bulgaria, the executives there. They helped us walk through it and helped us own our story and helped us understand that by us talking about it, it could help impact others. Because as you mentioned, for every one person who dies by a suicide, there are a couple hundred that are thinking about or have attempted. And you don't know who those people are. And by us telling our story, we get the message out. And one of the things that happened since we talked last week is we have dear friends in Australia. And because Australia is like 17 hours ahead, I had a really good friend of mine, David Petrie, call me when I was on my way out to the Raiders game. And he talked to me about how Australia is celebrating Suicide Prevention Day. We did some great stuff with Providence and AFSP on Suicide Prevention Day here in America, but he sent me what they were doing in Australia. And I loved their message. Their message was very simple. It's, are you okay? 3 words. And asking that question to people, talking about our story, sharing, what other folks have gone through, it helps reverberate throughout the public on what's going on, and that it's okay to talk about mental health. It's okay to talk about mental wellness. It's okay to talk about suicide prevention, because as Martha says, that word prevention is about hope. And when we talk about hope, we talk about opportunities, we talk about life. And so we really enjoy that. And I rambled on and I forgot the second part of your question, but I think it was something to do about, our alliances or coalitions, but I'm not for sure. So please remind me what that question was.
Yeah, I just saw, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but I also wanted to, have you speak about, how you're encouraging, families to have this conversation.
Yes. The number one thing I think is listening. I got to tell you, when I hear Solomon tell a story about how he had dark days after Ella's passing, how he had anxiety issues when he was in high school, I didn't know that. I didn't know it. Martha may know it because she was a much better parent than I. She was present there all the time. I was always traveling, and she was unbelievable. I give credit to to Martha for how she raised our children and did an unbelievable job. But she listened and she was there, she was present, she practiced self-care. And that's one key thing that I really recommend to parents is to listen, to also research and understand that, look for the signs. I mean, go to places like AFSP and go to places like the defensive line, and because there are significant signs that are available, and I wish I knew them better. I'm not saying it would have prevented Ella's, dying by suicide, but know that there are talking behavior and mood signs that exist out there. Are people talking about being a burden? Are they talking about feeling trapped? Are the moods? Are they looking less interested? Are they feeling, lots of anger and rage? Are the behaviors changing? Are they increasing their consumption of alcohol or drugs? Are they sleeping too little or too much? Are they being aggressive? Though there are multiple signs. And the text line and the 800 numbers are available to anybody. They're not just available to people who are in crisis. Those resources are available to help us as parents, as friends, as brothers and sisters, as coaches and teachers and janitors, to help us recognize that people are out there in our hurt. And so self-care, listening, understanding that depression is a mental illness. It's not, it shouldn't be stigmatized. We got to end the stigma, and just talking about it, having the conversation, because having the conversation makes a difference.
Yeah, and you're kind of already alluding to my final question for you today. When you talk about self-care and doing the right things to make sure that you're staying regulated and you're staying checked in with your emotions. And as amazing as the work is that you're doing, you and Solomon and Martha are going to these talks, and you're really putting yourself out there and changing and impacting lives. But during Suicide Prevention Month, I know this is a tough time for you all as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you're all doing to stay on top of your self-care? What is it doing, after you leave an event like you were at, which I know it ends with a lot of smiles and hugs, and people are, appreciate that you're there. But I know at the end of the day, when you guys are alone, this is hard things to discuss and talk about. So how are you staying on top of your self-care?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I hope my answer does it justice. One thing that we do practice as a family is we try to practice gratitude and thankfulness, and just being thankful. Listing 5 things. That's one thing Solomon mentioned in his journaling exercise yesterday with the kids. Just put down 5 things you're thankful for. For me, every day I wake up thanking God for the 24 years we have with Ella. I thank God for the fact that I woke up and that I'm present. And so the other key thing is just be present with your family and your friends. Be genuine and authentic. Really ask them, like I said, from that Australian Suicide Prevention Day, are you okay? And peel that onion back like we talked about last week, and just continue to make sure that they are okay, and don't just be flippant about it. The other key piece that we do as a family is, and I don't mean that, there's some folks who aren't spiritual, but we try to make sure that we listen to a sermon together. This week, that was one thing that helped me out, because it was tough last week after doing the podcast, both podcasts with you as well as Providence. Tough in a good way, but also doing the training we did at the high school in Capel, knowing that we were going to do this event in Vegas. I had to make sure that my spirit was right. We talked about those 4 stools, spirituality, or making sure we were right mentally, being right physically, make sure that we're doing something in the community. I had to make sure my 4 stools are right. I knew I was going to do community work. I felt like I was mentally practicing things, but I had to get myself right spiritually. So I heard some great sermons, over the week. And then we also try to sit down and listen to that sermon together and just talk about it and say, what did you get out of it? What did you not get out of it? And just that was one key thing. And then just staying true and just connected with our family. We've been blessed with, family like Ray, and who's also our executive director of the defensive line, and working with Solomon's, grandmother, Lockie, and our family and friends, my brother and sister in Chicago and Atlanta, just making sure that they're okay, just talking as a family about what we learned together as a family, what we learned spiritually together, and then what we wanted to accomplish together to make a difference in this world, whether it's through the defensive line, whether it's through AFSP or Flawless or Providence. How can we make a difference? And that's one reason why we also joined up with Born This Way, # Be Kind 21, where we're trying to be kind every day. Do something, pay it forward every day of September, and just be kind to somebody, because kindness makes a difference. You never know, that one act of kindness may save someone's life.
And that's a beautiful way to wrap up our second installment of this Suicide Prevention Month. weekly series. So I want to say thank you, Chris, once again for all of your insight, for
Mm,
always dropping gems and knowledge for all of us. Thank you
mm.
to everyone that joined throughout the conversation, and continue. I encourage everyone to continue to look up the work that the defensive line is doing, as well with Chris, Martha, and Solomon
Mm.
as well. And I gotta say, I mean, like I said, I'm a Dolphin fan, but I'm conflicted because you know when we play the Raiders this year, I'm gonna be like, ah
Hey,
man, like
well,
Solomon's my guy over there.
you know what we should
So
do? You should come out. We should do the podcast from Raider Stadium. We'll get the Raiders to get us access to the stadium. We should do the podcast live after the game.
hey, let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. I'll wear a Raider
Absolutely.
jersey if we do that.
No, okay, that sounds good. I love it. I love it.
All right. Well,
All
thank
right,
you
brother.
again so much,
Thank
Chris.
you,
Until
Trey.
next time.
Thank you, and Flawless, and everybody else part of this. Appreciate it. God bless.
You have a great one.
Thank you too.